Doug Ware.
Carl Franklin, nice to meet you.
How are you?
Doing great. I'm having a terrific time this week. It's been a blast so far.
So far has been just a couple of days. Were you here on Monday for Microsoft Day?
I was, but I was doing a little bit of last-minute preparation for my talks today. And I'm also doing a day-long post-event conference on Thursday on building web content management sites with SharePoint. So I was actually condensing my demo notes down so that I could send them to my Kindle, which I just bought, and I'm going to use a Kindle on Thursday as notes instead of my usual stack of papers.
How does that work? Exactly. Not that we should be talking about the Kindle the whole time, but I'm curious.
It came out looking good. I don't need the figures that I've got in there. Being able to condense 10 steps down, I'm going to be doing 17, 18 demos over the course of that 16 hours, and some of them have dependencies on each other. So even though I like to think I understand my own material pretty well, and especially the simple, trivial ones,
Not
feel like you could do in your sleep. Those are the ones that you skip a step. So
not everybody can have two laptops, or afford to have two laptops.
Well, the thing I'm hoping is that the next page button and the little bit of indexing that I did is going to make it possible for me to really, that plus my mouse is going to make it possible for me to do a little bit more roaming and whatnot instead of being the guy standing at the lectern preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
Although I hope they're the choir.
So, well, good luck on Thursday. But
Thanks.
Tell me about your regular sessions that you're doing here.
Well, I just got done talking about building list definition features in SharePoint, which is a pretty low-level, hard topic. I told another presenter here what I was speaking on this morning. He said, "Why would you want to teach people how to do that?" And the reason is I think it's a requirement that they may face from time to time. But more importantly, it's good to understand how the platform you're working on is really put together. And then tomorrow I'm going to talk about list programming, which is more of this is how you create a list or add a column or run a query or that sort of thing, more like your traditional data access talk. So
lists are really so fundamental to SharePoint that it's really good to know all you can know about them. That's probably what you're thinking.
If you can't store data and make it jump through hoops, then you're not going to really be able to map well to the requirements. SharePoint does so much stuff out of the box, but if you can just add that little 10% on top of it to
when you're not speaking at DevConnections, are you a SharePoint consultant?
I'm a SharePoint consultant. I run a company called Illuminocean in Atlanta, and we're a boutique and small SharePoint consultancy, and I also do training. I've done a series of videos for app dev. I go out and I teach classes, and I come from a bigger consulting background. I used to run a large gold partner in Atlanta.
Okay.
One of your friends, Rocky Laka, is a Magenicon. I've worked out of the Atlanta office, and I was an early advocate of CSLA and
good stuff.
But I just had to be able to be up to my elbows in the technology. So
well, there's for anybody who's looking for work in this down economy, SharePoint is still going strong. Tell me about the typical experience you have when you go to do a SharePoint project. Do you find that most of the projects that you're taking on are ones that have already been tried by somebody else, and then you're coming into sort of, the cavalry cleaning up the mess, or are most of them thought out well, and you're coming in at the beginning of the process?
Are any of my customers going to see this?
No, and you don't have to name names.
No, I see a little bit of everything. The SharePoint adoption curve reminds me of the .NET adoption curve, to be honest with you. I mean, what we saw the first 2 years, with the exception of a few very brave organizations that got out there and were pushing the envelope, were let's stand it up, pick a departmental solution if they were going to do automation, or stand it up enterprise-wide and make out-of-the-box functionality available. So there's a lot of cleanup work that's going on from that. Maybe they didn't have a governance plan in place, and so it caught on like wildfire, and they have to get their hands around it. Maybe they built some custom functionality and then realized that it was in the box. That's the thing I think I see the most with people that implemented SharePoint was they they finally get far enough down the learning curve and they go, you know what, we just wrote a bunch of stuff that
It's
was there already.
Yeah. So knowing what their options are up front is obviously a good thing.
A lot of training.
For developers who are into just getting into SharePoint maybe, or have been in for a while, what is the best tip that you can give a SharePoint developer that'll save them the most time and money? And something specific, not like study hard, do a good job, but
take the time to understand the deployment model.
Learn
model. What the 12 Hive is, what the structure of it is. Learn where all the files and folders are. If you're a developer, if you're an implementer, take the time to learn. Which is the other side is take the time to learn what the heck SharePoint does. What's there out of the box.
Yeah.
Understand it as a user, as a power user, before you start going into customize. The thing that I found, and this is not unique to SharePoint by any stretch of the imagination, is that you as a developer or you want to jump in, right, and you want to see results. And so our desire to, especially to be agile and show it's hard to go to your boss or maybe even to yourself that what I want to spend the next 2 weeks doing is plumbing the details of this search center that we're about to customize or this web content management system that we're going to do, because there's just a lot there out of the box. And if you don't know what's there out of the box, or I don't know if the folks here can see this wood grain here in the paneling behind us, but the same thing is true. If you cut that wood grain, from top to bottom, it's going to be a nice, easy cut. Maybe you can even karate chop it. It's going to break that way. But if you try to saw across the grain, it's going to be much, much harder.